What is up, everyone? Darkside Phil here, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth video game review series, where I bring you maximum truth and minimum bullshit regarding my personal experiences with today's newest video game releases. I hate when I say retail because sometimes I don't necessarily review a retail game. It might be a downloadable game or something like that. And today, we're going to be talking about a game that I think a lot of people are going to want to know what my feelings are on this game, simply because it is a Wii U launch title. And a lot of people who are maybe looking to possibly get a Wii U soon are looking for, gee, what are the best games, what are the worst games, what should I and shouldn't I consider getting when I pick up this console. This game is one of a long-running series of games. In fact, I think this is either the third or fourth installment. Don't quote me on that, because previously to this, they've never been released on a home console before, solely due to the capabilities of the home console. And it is definitely one of the most unique games I think I've ever played, but will that equate into a fun game that's worth, your hard-earned 60 bucks? So let's talk a little bit about Scribblenauts Unlimited for the Wii U, okay? Now, it's so funny because I'm looking on the back and it says, oh, your gamepad and up to 3 Wii remotes, and what they're talking about is that for the very first time, Scribblenauts Unlimited has the ability to have multiplayer in the game. Now, is it really what you think when you think of typical multiplayer? Probably not. What it is that in this game, you have the ability to create things out of thin air. You have a magical notebook which supposedly you write things in, and when you write things in, these things appear out of thin air and come to life, okay? So you can make other people, you can make monsters, you can make animals, you can make machines, cars, anything really you can think of, you can kind of drum up in this game and create by writing in this notebook, supposedly. And they just kept saying multiplayer, multiplayer, so everyone kind of thought, oh gee, the game's multiplayer, you can have more than one person who's running around doing this, and the answer is no. That is a complete misconception about the game. What happens in the game is that one person, whoever's first player, gets to use the giant Wii U gamepad, while everyone else is going to be using regular Wiimotes, okay? And this first person who's first player creates things, and then the other people have the ability to point the Wiimote at them and take control of them. Now, the thing about that is that sometimes things can go a little haywire. So let's say you're a piece of cheese. Well, wow, you're a piece of flying cheese. You may think it's funny to be a piece of flying cheese and fly around the screen until a bird comes by and eats you. So that's the kind of stuff that happens in the multiplayer mode of this game. It's not really multiplayer. These people who control these items don't necessarily even contribute to the story or to anything that's going on. They're just kind of there, and you gave them a character to control, so they kind of have something to do while you go on and actually progress in the game and go through the game. So, what is the game about? Well, as I said, the main character has a magical notebook, and his sister unfortunately has become petrified, or is becoming petrified. The story is kind of a silly thing, so I'm not really going to get into it that much because it's not that important. The basic goal is that you need to go throughout this open world of the Scribblenauts Unlimited universe, which are many different kinds of locales. You've got deserts, you've got tropical jungles, you've got snow stages, you've got volcano stages, you've got cities with different kinds of buildings, you've got a haunted house, you've got all this kind of stuff. So wide variety in the locations in the game. And what you need to do is you need to do good deeds to help out people and or animals and or anyone who needs something. And when you complete these deeds, you get star pieces. Once these star pieces are added up, they become whole stars, and the more whole stars you get, the more areas of the game you unlock. Then as you're unlocking them, each area has more puzzles, has more star pieces to find by helping people, and then ultimately, when you get enough star pieces, you can go back home, and your sister is going to be saved. Okay, it's very simplistic. The story really is not important. There's no great arcing story here. It's just kind of silly. Go get star pieces. They might be saying, well, how do you help these people and animals in need? What kind of stuff are you doing? Well, most of the time what happens is you'll run into someone who either needs something or has a problem, and you can create an object with your Wii U gamepad and your Magic Notebook that will help them. So for example, maybe someone has lost something and they need to help finding it. Maybe you can give them a magnifying glass so they can look around for it. Maybe someone's hungry and they want a certain type of food, and so you have to create the food with the gamepad. Maybe there's something that's always wanted to fly. Maybe a turtle always wanted to fly. You have to give it wings. So you name it a flying turtle, or maybe you say a winged turtle. And all of a sudden, the turtle will sprout wings and fly away. So this Magic Notebook not only can create objects, it can also edit existing ones. So if you might have someone who's really small and they're getting bullied, and you can make them large, and all of a sudden they grow giant, and now they become the bully in charge. So you can actually add adjectives to objects. I believe this is a new feature. A lot of people, I've never played a previous Scribblenaut game, but people have said, oh, you know, in previous ones you couldn't necessarily add like adjectives or multiple adjectives, and in this game you can. So you could be the huge blue flying mouse, and it's all of a sudden a giant blue floating mouse will appear on the screen. And that's pretty much it. And I know that does sound simple in what it is, but the thing is this, the Scribblenauts campaign has about, actually when you look at it, about 8 to 10 hours of content with the amount of puzzles that are actually in the game. And some of them are pretty simplistic. You can instantly figure out what it is. Some of them can be a little trickier to figure out. Like I remember there was one particular puzzle where there was toxic waste, and they were like, gee, it would be nice if this toxic waste would go away. So I was thinking, gee, what can I do? And I made a black hole. That didn't work. It sucked it in, but it didn't work. I tried all these different things. Then finally, I just put like a weapon in my hand, and I attacked it, and it went away. And then it worked, and I was like, that was pretty silly. Like, that was not what I would have thought. So that's what I mean. Some of the puzzles are really, they make logical sense. You can figure it out right away. Some of them are a little bit more cryptic, and so it's a little bit difficult to figure out what exactly they're trying to say or what they're expecting you to do. And some of them are just like, there's really no clue. You just got to try everything under the sun. And that could be a little bit frustrating for a lot of people. But for the most part, the puzzles are pretty creative, pretty interesting, and pretty fun. And I think some of the biggest appeal of Scribblenauts Unlimited is trying to find a creative way to solve puzzles. So, you know, there might be a puzzle where one certain thing needs to be done, and it might be a very quick association. You immediately say, oh, okay, you know, the mouse is hungry, give it cheese. And you might say, so just give cheese, and you solve the puzzle. But you might want to do something different. Maybe you want to give him a large chocolate mousse, you know, and he'll eat that. And that's what I mean. You can do creative things, and it's cool to see what the game will spout out when you make these things. Now, there is a misconception about the game, another one that I kind of want to bring up here. The game, even though it does use the Wii U gamepad, never actually requires you to draw anything. What you're actually doing is you're going into a keyboard and you're typing out the names of objects, and then they appear on the screen. To which all I have to say is, why do they call the game Scribblenauts? What did you ever scribble? You never did. You're actually typing. They should call it Type Knots, because that's really what you're doing. You're typing out the names of objects and they appear on the screen. Another thing is that the game is called Scribblenauts Unlimited, and they kind of promoted this game saying, oh, for the first time you can have unlimited opportunities, unlimited possibilities. You type in a word, you're going to get an object. You know, that we've really increased the engine for this installment of the game, and it's really an unparalleled amount of creation. And I really don't believe that, and that's not the case from my experience. There were a lot of times during my playthrough where I wanted to solve a puzzle in a creative way, and I wanted to, like for example, start a fire or put smoke under a smoke alarm to make the smoke alarm go off. And I said, oh, well, I'll give them a cigar, because a cigar sets off smoke, that'll set off the smoke alarm. The game says, nope, cigars is not recognized. And you're going to find a lot of the times during the game, there are objects that really, I mean, a cigar, does it matter if a kid knows what a cigar is or not? There's a lot of things that just don't really make sense, that they don't work. I remember several times during the playthrough, there were items that I was trying to use, and the game wouldn't recognize them. I think one of them was like sexy, the sexy woman. Nope, sexy is not recognized. Anything that has to do with sex or sexy, not recognized. Anything that has to do with smoking, not recognized. Almost like trying to ban vices or something like that. And there are valid adjectives as well that you'll try to use, and the game will be like, nope, that's not recognized as a valid adjective, and you'll get frustrated because You know it's a real word. You've used it in your life. You know, it's silly that a lot of stuff isn't recognized by the game. Now, it's not too bad, but like I said, if you're not just trying to solve these puzzles with the very commonplace way to solve them, like the direct, you know, initial thing that pops into your head to answer because it's a direct association with that puzzle, if you want to do it more creatively, sometimes you're going to get frustrated. Another thing is, a lot of the times, you'll type in things and you'll get similar creatures. Like, I believe there's, if you type in like dragon and wyvern, you're going to get the same thing. It's going to be like a flying reptile kind of a thing. It's not any, there's no differentiation between the two. And sometimes you'll try to use an adjective and it won't come out the way that you expected. I'm trying to think of an example, but like it would be, I wanted him to do one thing and then it didn't really work. No direct examples popping into my head right now, and I apologize for that, but you will get a little bit frustrated during the campaign if you're stuck on a puzzle and you think you know a way to solve it, and then you keep trying to use different words and different items and it's just not recognizing them, and that's frustrating. I mean, it's supposed to be Scribblenauts Unlimited, so you should, you know, unlimited, but there's definite limits in the game, and that is really like an annoyance of mine. Like, why were there so limits in the game if, and of course I know why, because you can't possibly fit unlimited possibilities on a game disc. You know, you need an unlimited storage capacity then in order to have that. You need someone who recognizes every word in the English language. No, it's not going to happen. So obviously, billing the game as unlimited, they kind of wrote themselves into a corner there, and it's almost setting themselves up for disappointment because you make people think that there's more options than there really are. Okay? So, all in all, if I'm remembering correctly, there's just over, I think, 100 total stars that you can get in the game, but that doesn't mean that there's only 100 puzzles. It means that remember, there's star fragments that I told you about as well. So, I think it takes 5 fragments to make a star. So right there you can just see, geez, that's a lot of puzzles. And then in addition, there are actually mini-games that are a series of puzzles, meaning it's not just one thing. For example, one of them was, you're a chef, and you have to cook food for 4 completely different customers looking for completely different things. And you have to do it right because they have to like their meal. If they don't like their meal, you fail. And so, for example, a guy will come in, oh, I really want something that's going to help me grow big and strong. So you give him some kind of a meat with protein in it, and then all of a sudden he'll become a big buff guy, and you'll pass that part of the puzzle. The next guy comes in, and it's Dracula. And he says, I don't want to drink any blood today. Give me something else that's healthy. So you give him a fruit smoothie, and he walks away, and he's like, oh, that's delicious. So stuff like that. And after you complete multiple puzzles like that, then you unlock a whole star. So there's actually places in the game where you can get a whole star at a time. So, all in all, like I said, it takes about 8 to 10 hours if you really want to collect every one of the main stars in the game. But then outside of all those stars, the regular puzzles, there's actually, in a menu in the game, which you might actually not even realize unless you really look at the options of the game, there's optional star pieces that you can get by creating objects out of thin air in certain areas. So for example, one of them was create an object that's used over a hole in the ground to turn it into a toilet. And the answer there, you have to put 2 and 2 together. Gee, what is that? Oh, that's right, it's an outhouse. You put that on the ground, you put a hole in the ground, and the hole becomes a toilet. It's an outhouse. So you draw an outhouse will appear, and all of a sudden you'll just get a star piece. And so there's actually, I believe, something like over 200 optional star pieces that you can earn by doing these puzzles. And it's a neat thing because during the course of the game, you might actually create one of these by accident and you'll get a bonus star piece. You'll be like, ooh, that was cool. But it's also cool because after you've beaten all the main puzzles in the game, you can now try to do all these optional puzzles, and it does add additional gameplay to the game. But the game is very simple. The game isn't anything complex. The game is the same game mechanic over and over and over. You're going to walk from point A to point B. Someone's going to need something. You're going to type it out on your keyboard. It's going to appear. You get a star piece. And that's pretty much it. There's no real variety. It is a game that makes you think a lot of the time because you have to think directly what can solve these puzzles. But once you've beaten the game once, and once you've done the optional puzzles, which probably could add several extra hours of gameplay, there's really no replayability in the game except that they've created a creation engine in the game that has an object editor, okay? Now what the object editor allows you to do is combine different things, different pieces, change colors, change different things. And what some people have actually started doing is actually they have in the store a building where people over the Wii U, I forget if they call it the Miiverse, whatever the hell they call it, the Nintendo Network, I guess they actually officially call it. People are sharing the objects that they've created. So you might see the Pokemon store. And it's all different Pokemon have actually been created for the game, which is pretty neat. You may go to another store, it's Jack Sparrow and all Pirates of the Caribbean stuff. And the thing is, these aren't officially tied into the subject matter. But as of right now, from what I'm understanding, there hasn't been any trouble with copyright infringement or anything like that. No one's gone to Scribblenauts and said, how dare you have people creating, fan-created content of our copyrighted stuff. And ideally, it doesn't really matter because you can't really use those things to do anything. I mean, wow, I have a Pokemon, I made a Charizard. So what? So now it's walking on the screen, big deal. It's not any part of the gameplay, it's not going to help you. So, even though there is a little bit there is this cool object editor, it really doesn't add to much. If you're the kind of person who wants to try to recreate cool stuff, copyrighted stuff, or pre-existing stuff from other things inside Scribblenauts, you can, but why would you want to? You know what I mean? So overall, Scribblenauts Unlimited is a cute, quirky game. It's different than a lot of other stuff that I've ever played. One or two bugs that I actually found with the game that I want to bring up. The main bug that really bothered me was when I was later on trying to do the additional puzzles, not the main puzzles of the game, but the puzzles to get the optional star pieces. A lot of the times I was trying to do it and I couldn't figure it out right away, so I'd create a bunch of objects that weren't the right ones. And what I found is that once the screen started to get like maybe a dozen objects on it, the game actually locks up. And it doesn't just lock up, it locks up your entire console, and you have to unplug the console to turn it off and turn it back on again. This happened to me twice when I was trying to do the optional star pieces in the game. And again, you have to kind of scratch your head and say, now wait a minute, Scribblenauts Unlimited, when they want you to make like a whole bunch of stuff, why is the game lock up? It's just so odd. So as a game bug, that was kind of frustrating. You got to be careful when you're playing the game. You don't make too many objects at once or you might crash your game, okay? But outside of that, no game bugs or anything like that. And I'll openly admit, one of the most unique games I've ever played, and it's kind of fun. Like if you want to get around quickly, you can make yourself a jetpack and now you're shoot around the whole stage the whole time. In fact, that's what a lot of people do. They just make a jetpack for transportation. And it was fun to try to figure out creative ways to make the puzzles. But after beating the campaign once, and then doing maybe an hour or two of the optional puzzles, I'll be honest, I'm done with the game. Like there's like another 100 optional things to do. I'm pretty much shot. I'm done. I don't really feel like going back to Scribblenauts to do them. It gets to a point and you're like, okay, I've done this for long enough, and it's really not that fun anymore, and it gets kind of boring and repetitive. So it is what it is. Scribblenauts Unlimited will give you at the least probably around 10 hours. For those who want to do the optional puzzles, probably maybe, I don't know, up to 15 hours, depending on how long it takes you to figure them out, to beat. But there's no replayability, and once you beat it, it's like, damn, I kind of got this game that's it, you know? There's no reason to ever go back. So, for a launch title for the Wii U, it's an interesting take. I now understand why people like the series. It's quirky, it's cute, it's fun, and it's cool to see, you know, oh, I did it, I solved the puzzle, some quirky, cute thing happens on screen, you have a quick laugh, you move on to the next puzzle. But really, it's not anything too complex, and it's not anything that's like, wow, it really blew me away. Compared to the other games this year that I've played, it's pretty good, but it's definitely not anything great. Like, if they were going to really bring this to the next level, they would have had to do something creative and crazy with it. Have a real multiplayer mode where two people maybe duel by making objects or something. Like, it's such a cop-out to say that the game has multiplayer when really all they're doing is taking control of things that you create with the notebook, and they can't really contribute anything to the game. They're just there bouncing around the screen. So Scribblenauts Unlimited, it's a quirky game, it's fun, but once you beat it once, you're pretty much shot, and you will get a little bit frustrated during that course of that time because there will be things you want to do, and for a game that calls itself Unlimited, it has limitations, and that could be kind of frustrating. So I liked it, but I wasn't like bowled over. It's actually one of my favorite games of the launch titles of the Wii U, but I really don't think that's saying much. Out of the 6 or 7 launch titles that I think I played, I mean, this is probably ranked maybe 3rd or 4th on the list. You know, and there's just not a lot of reason to go back to it once you get through it once. You might say, shit, I just spent 60 bucks, ran through this game in a day or two, and now that's it. I'll never go back to it. So a little bit of a disappointment there. Scribblenauts Unlimited, a fun game, a quirky game, but ultimately a simple game, a repetitive game. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's definitely better than like an average kind of washed up repetitive shooter game or anything like that. It is quirky, it's interesting, you will get some hours of content out of it, but some people might find it boring and repetitive, and I really don't think it's anything great, especially because of the game bug, because it's not unlimited like the game advertises. I'm a little bit on the disappointed side because of that, so it's a 7.5 out of 10. Okay? So that's it for the Hateful Truth of Scribblenauts Unlimited. I hope that you enjoyed it. Now you know whether or not you'll like the game, if it's something that you're going to want to pick up, especially if you're getting the Wii U, maybe for Christmas or something like that. Definitely, you know, I think it's an interesting game. It's something that you'll have fun with. I don't know if it's worth a full $60 price tag, being that it's a once through and done kind of a deal, and a lot of people might even get bored and turned off by it. So, that's it. Thanks for watching The Hateful Truth, and I will see you next time for another game review. Peace.